purchases across 3 tenors, basically from 5 to 10, 10 to 25, and 25 plus. They all got trimmed. It really comes down to that steepening of the yield curve. And Governor Crowder, he wants that yield curve to steepen. It had really flattened quite a lot over last or 2 weeks and steepened a bit since. And today they really come out and said, okay, we really want that to steepen because of the negative impacts of a flat yield curve.
Analysts say the move should give the BOJ some breathing room as the yield curve did steepen in response to the action.
For stocks in Asia, it was a mostly muted session today, except in India, where we saw equities post their biggest one-day gain in more than a decade, thanks to planned government tax cuts. Bloomberg's Juliet Sally joins us from Singapore with details. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Karen. Indian stocks surged along with the rupee, while bonds slumped after the country's finance minister said tax on domestic companies will be slashed to 22% from 30%. The offshore yuan rose, pairing weekly declines, while the CSI 300 closed higher by 1/3% to 3,935 points. Japan's Topix index closed flat, notching up a 5th weekly gain. Markets in Australia, South Korea and Taiwan all contributed to Friday's gain on the MSCI Asia Pacific Index. However, over the course of the week, Asian stocks were down around 1/3%. In Singapore, I'm Juliet Sally, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thanks, Juliet. In Europe today, Brexit talks are offering hope that there could be a deal before next month's deadline. Let's get the very latest now from Bloomberg Daybreak Europe anchor Caroline Hepker live in London. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Nathan and Karen. Yes, Jean-Claude Juncker appears optimistic about a Brexit deal that can be done by the 31st of October. The European Commission President tells Sky News that if all the objectives are met, then they won't need the so-called Irish backstop provision. He's open to avoiding a hard Irish border by shifting customs and regulatory checks elsewhere, but Ireland's foreign minister is pouring cold water on the idea, saying that the substance of the talks on the backstop remains stuck. Live in London, I'm Caroline Hepker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Caroline, thank you. Between Brexit, the trade war, and a global economic slowdown, investors would do well to avoid risk right now. That's according to Oaktree Capital co-founder Howard Marks.
We have high levels of uncertainty, low prospective returns relative to history in most asset classes. So today, I would emphasize avoiding losing money over avoiding missing opportunities. But, you know, I'm a bond guy, and that's just me.
Marks has also criticized the Federal Reserve for cutting rates, saying it will boost asset prices further, making the rich richer without benefiting savers.
And the Fed's also garnering criticism from Bill Lee. The Milken Institute chief economist says dissent among FOMC members points to weak leadership from Chairman Jerome Powell.
It's gotten to the point where dissent that used to be internal to the Fed has now become a public dissent. You have 3 dissenters voting against Chair Powell, and that's one of the hardest things for a chairman to do, is to rein back the public dissent. And it shows that Chair Powell is probably one of the weakest chairs that the FOMC has ever had, because all the previous chairs have been able to generate that kind of consensus that he has not been able to.
And policymakers are also under pressure to fix the stress in U.S. funding markets by boosting Treasury holdings. The New York Fed plans to do another $75 billion repo operation today. Swap spreads stumbled to record lows yesterday as calls grow louder for more aggressive steps.
And on the corporate front, shares of Royal Bank of Scotland are up more than 2% in London. The bank promoted Alison Rose to Chief Executive Officer, making her the first woman to run one of Britain's big 4 lenders. Futures this morning again higher. S&P futures up about 3 points now. Dow futures up 27. NASDAQ futures up 14. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thanks a lot. 5:07 on Wall Street now. Let's bring in Michael Barr, find out more of what's going on around the world. Happy Friday, Michael.
Happy Friday to you, Nathan. A whistleblower complaint about President Trump made by an intelligence official centers on Ukraine, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. According to the Washington Post report, it has set off a struggle between Congress and the executive branch. 2 former U.S. officials say the complaint involved communications with a foreign leader and a promise that Trump made, which was so alarming that an intelligence official went to the Inspector General of the intelligence community. House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff says the DOJ has gone against protocol and blocked that information by being reported to Congress.
If, in a matter within the jurisdiction of the Director of National Intelligence, you have an employee of that community or a contractor or detailee who follows the law and makes a complaint, and it is possible for the subject of that complaint to essentially quash the complaint or keep it from Congress, then this system is badly broken.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's president is facing calls from Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani to investigate business ventures in Ukraine involving Joe Biden's son. President Trump is hosting a ceremonial visit in honor of Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison today, including the second state dinner at the White House under President Trump. Bloomberg's Bob Moon reports.
A day of meetings and the formal Rose Garden dinner give Morrison the opportunity to remind Trump that new challenges to regional security are emerging 7 decades after their nation's alliance was cemented in World War II. It comes at a critical time as both nations seek to deal with China's growing influence in the South Pacific. While China's economic might is the main catalyst to Trump's trade war, diplomats in Washington and Canberra are increasingly concerned about Beijing's geopolitical ambitions and say both nations must now make hard choices to place real resources behind new initiatives in the region. Bob Moon, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg met with President Trump about the practices of the social media platform. President Trump tweeted that it was a nice meeting. However, it was a testy meeting between two lawmakers on Capitol Hill involving Zuckerberg and Republican Senator Josh Hawley over his company's record on privacy and safeguarding user data. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. It's 5:09 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, brought to you by Burden Accountants and Advisors. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, the Yankees could have clinched the division Wednesday night, failed to do so the champagne was ready to go again last night, and this time they made sure. Easy win over the Angels, 9-1, win number 100 on the season, and the Yanks are off to the postseason for the 55th time. That's 22 more times than any other franchise. Half of the previous trips have ended with winning the World Series. Last time the Yanks did that was 2009. There are 2 players left from that team. One is CC Sabathia. He knows the Yanks haven't gone to October as a division winner since 2012.
Yeah, this is fun, especially winning the division. This, like I said, I mean, this was a big goal of ours. We were tired of playing in that wild card game. So, you know, good to get to this division.
They'll sit out that one-game wild card playoff. They'll play either the wild card winner or Minnesota. Depends if the Yanks finish better record than Houston. They are currently half game behind the Astros. Longest tenured Yank is Brett Gardner. Had a big game last night, a homer, a 2-run double. He knows the Yanks this year overcame a ton of injuries.
Well, I mean, we just really try and take things as slow as possible, take things day by day, and you know, everybody's done a great job of stepping up when they're needed and doing their job, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Domingo Germán won 18 games for the Yanks, but he was not part of the celebration, may not be on the playoff roster. Germán said to have been involved in a domestic violence incident. MLB is investigating. For now, he's on paid administrative leave. NFL last night, Jacksonville's first win, 9 sacks, a 20-7 win over Tennessee. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Nathan?
All right, John, thanks. Tune in tonight for the Bloomberg Business of Sports show when we speak with DeMaurice Smith, Executive Director of the NFL Players Association. You can catch that conversation tonight at 8 and tomorrow at 11 a.m. right here on Bloomberg Radio, or subscribe to Bloomberg Business of Sports wherever you get your podcasts. S&P futures higher by 3.5 points. Dow futures up 32. NASDAQ futures higher by almost 16 points. 10-year Treasury yield 1.77%. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/c.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA net or protected, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things and strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings, strings, strings and things. Strings and
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
strings and things.
Working on a tablet has never been so good, whatever you're doing. With the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6, you've got all the power of a PC. It's sleek, slender and stylish, with a battery life of up to 14 hours. But it's not all work, you know. Get creative with the advanced S Pen, or enjoy better gaming and movies with its epic 10.5-inch screen and quad AKG speakers. We'll also give you an extra £50 off the Tab S6 when you trade in your old tablet or laptop at Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply.
University is on the horizon, but which one has what it takes to jumpstart their future? Find the perfect match with the Sunday Times Good University Guide, as we grade what each university has to offer, from academic rankings to tuition fees, plus so much more. Search the Sunday Times Good University Guide.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Alex Steele.
Another company at the forefront of sustainable fashion is Allbirds, an environmentally friendly footwear company. The eco-friendly sneakers are made from renewable, sustainable materials like wool, sugar, and tree fiber. Joining me now from San Francisco is Jolie Zwillinger, Allbirds co-founder and co-CEO. Can you talk a little bit to us about how you make a product people want that work, that's profitable, and also be very sustainable?
Yeah, you know, it's a related thing. You know, we started the company because we saw this opportunity that this enormous industry in footwear, which emits, as you were noting, a huge amount of the world's global kind of carbon emissions, and we saw that as a result of this, everyone was moving faster, cheaper materials as quick as they can and just slapping a big logo on the side. And so we actually saw that the alignment of using really premium natural materials that were actually good for the planet and making good business for customers was actually a really big opportunity that was being overlooked by some of the big athletic companies and some of the other fashion companies. And so we take these really premium materials and we actually let them do the work. Mm-hmm. And we design wonderful shoes and other products and these premium materials make it feel super comfortable and make it a great product.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. European stocks and U.S. stock index futures are struggling for momentum as a busy week of central bank meetings draw to a close, with the focus now likely to shift back to the trade war. The pound is strengthening. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 3 points right now. Dow futures up 31 and NASDAQ futures up 15. The DAX in Germany, it's down about 0.2%. 10-year Treasury up 4/30 seconds. The yield 1.77%. Yield on the 2-year 1.74%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.6% or 33 cents at 58.46 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4% or $6.50 at 15.1270 an ounce. The euro 1.1048 against the dollar. The British pound 1.2542 and the yen is at 107.93. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The Trump administration is in a battle with Congress over access to whistleblowers reported to complain about incidents, including a private conversation between President Trump and a foreign leader. According to the Washington Post, the government's intelligence watchdog says the blocked complaint is serious and urgent. President Trump says he had a nice meeting with Facebook's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg. However, Republican Senator John Hawley had a testy clash with Zuckerberg over Facebook's record on privacy and safeguarding users' data. In baseball, the Yankees are the AL East champs following a 9-1 pounding of the Angels. It was New York's 100th win. The Red Sox beat the Giants 5-4. The Orioles lost. Thursday night NFL action. The Jaguars down the Titans 20-7. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. It's 5:19 on Wall Street and live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. We're joined now by Christina Hooper, Chief Global Market Strategist at Invesco. Good Friday morning, Christina. Curious to get your take on all the central bank moves we saw this week. Is there a narrative to glean from all the action we've seen around the world?
Absolutely. And that narrative is that central banks are feeling the burden to stimulate. It's really interesting because this has been thus far in the last decade, really, this is the century of central bank intervention and an over-reliance on monetary policy. Even though monetary policy is quite flawed, it's a blunt instrument. It's not a surgical tool.
They're feeling the urge to stimulate, yet we're seeing division within the Federal Reserve on whether to do that. What makes you say that they're feeling the pressure to stimulate?
Because there is just a lack of fiscal stimulus, at least coming from developed countries. It's an interesting narrative when we look at fiscal stimulus because you have a lack of fiscal stimulus coming from the Eurozone, from Japan, where they're actually poised to raise taxes, and from the U.S. At the same time, though, we've got countries like India cutting taxes quite significantly and being very stimulative fiscally. So in the absence of fiscal stimulus, many central banks feel compelled to step in. Certainly that was the story around the global financial crisis.
So are you thinking then that the Federal Reserve is going to cut more deeply than perhaps the markets are expecting?
Well, I'm not sure because it is very controversial, as you alluded to in talking about that split. Not all central bankers are on board with it because there's a recognition that it creates market distortions as opposed to directly impacting the economy. So I really believe it remains to be seen. I believe Vice Chair Clarida when he says that the Fed is going to take it one meeting at a time. But I do think there's a good chance the Fed could cut rates again this year.
What are you thinking the Fed is going to be looking at specifically when it makes those decisions?
Well, it's clear that it's very much economic data dependent, but the Fed sees itself as the world's central banker, so it's not necessarily going to be just U.S. economic data, and they'll also certainly possibly react to trade news flow. it's not beyond what they view as their purview. They recognize that they don't have the tools to specifically countervail the negative forces of trade friction, but they do appear willing to provide some kind of an insurance cut in the face of potential problems created by trade wars.
What's your sense of where things stand in regard to the trade war now that negotiations have at least jump-started a little bit here and there's been some delay on raising tariffs further?
Well, my attitude is to hope for the best but plan for the worst. It seems that the most likely scenario right now is that talks continue, that we continue to get both positive and negative news flow, but that as we get closer to the 2020 U.S. presidential election, the U.S. is more likely to take minor concessions from China and call it a deal.
Now, when you say plan for the worst, how do you advise investors to do that?
Well, to recognize that there's going to be significant volatility, including downward volatility, created by any kind of deterioration in trade relationships. But to recognize that we also have increased central bank accommodation, which suggests that the environment will be supportive for risk assets.
About a minute left here. Are there ways for investors to take advantage of that volatility?
Well, certainly exposure to active management helps protect on the downside. We've seen that in historical data. But beyond that, it's about having broad diversification, having exposure to alternative asset classes, which tend not to be closely correlated with equities or traditional fixed income, and so they can smooth out that volatility. And of course, investors can certainly be tactical and try to take advantage of all the different geopolitical moves going on. I believe, for example, Chinese stocks have been beaten down, especially areas like Chinese tech, and that could be a potential area of opportunity if one has a long enough time horizon to hang on until this gets resolved.
Christina Hooper, thank you. As always, Christina Hooper is Chief Global Market Strategist at Invesco. Futures slightly higher ahead of the open. S&P futures are up almost 3 points now. Dow futures higher by 27, and NASDAQ futures gaining almost 14 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 1.77%. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak. Good morning.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures are slightly higher and crude oil is rising this morning as a busy week of central bank meetings draws to a close. The focus is now likely to shift back to the trade war. S&P futures up 3, NASDAQ futures up 13, Dow futures up 26. NYMEX crude higher by 0.6% at $58.50 a barrel. Stocks ended yesterday near the starting line as investors failed to find a catalyst to boost the market to an all-time high. The S&P 500 closed little changed at 3,007. The Dow fell 52 or 0.2% to 27,095. The NASDAQ rose 5 points to 8183. After getting a boost from positive comments on trade, stocks took a leg down after a report about a U.S. official threatening steeper tariffs against China. Overseas, European markets are slipping. Asian markets closed narrowly mixed. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. And feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/award.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA and ATOL protected, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
And we have Mary on the line. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Gary. The song I'd like to request is Take Me Breath Away. It reminds me of a bad relationship I once had.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they fleeced me of my money, were super clingy, suffocating, in fact. I couldn't breathe. But I am now free of them, and I've never felt better.
Nice one, Mary. Now, is there anything you'd like to say to that old flame?
Yeah, but unfortunately, cigarettes can't really hear you.
Stoptober. It's not you, it's them. Join the thousands of others quitting smoking this October. Search Stoptober.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things and strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things.
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
University is on the horizon, but which one has what it takes to jumpstart their future? Find the perfect match with the Sunday Times Good University Guide, as we grade what each university has to offer, from academic rankings to tuition fees, plus so much more. Search the Sunday Times Good University Guide.
Your payroll deadline is rapidly approaching, but you're not waking up in a cold sweat, afraid you've forgotten to pay your staff, because with QuickBooks Payroll, it's all under control. So while QuickBooks is speeding through your pay runs, calculating pension contributions, and managing your taxes all in one place, you can chill like a koala in a hammock.
Search for QuickBooks Payroll. Intro offer for advanced payroll until 15th of November 2019. Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. QuickBooks, backing you.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by Eisner-Amper. Taxes are one of the certainties of life, but what worked for corporate taxpayers in the past may not work today. Eisner-Amper can help. Visit EisnerAmper.com/tax certainty.
And we're just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date in the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. stock index futures are higher this morning as we close out a trading week highlighted by several central bank decisions. It's quadruple witching day when the quarterly expiration of futures and options on indexes and stocks occur on the same day.
Now, the New York Fed plans to do another $75 billion overnight repo operation today. It'll be the fourth cash injection in a row. Market participants say the Fed needs to come up with a long-term solution.
Trade deputies from the U.S. and China are set for a second day of talks in Washington. The Trump administration says a Chinese delegation will also visit American farmlands next week.
Well, meanwhile, China's central bank is cutting borrowing costs, lowering its reference rate for bank loans by 5 basis points. We get more from Bloomberg's Zenda Curran in Hong Kong.
There was a signal from authorities that they are willing to do more to support the economy, but it was a pretty modest step, 5 basis points. That perhaps suggests they're trying to keep an eye on the overall credit and debt story in China that we all know so much about. They're trying to keep things stable.
The somewhat modest move has analysts calling for stronger easing from Beijing as data show economic growth continues to slow.
In Europe today, Brexit talks are offering hope there could be a deal before the October 31st deadline. We get the latest from Bloomberg's Sebastian Salek in London.
Jean-Claude Juncker told Sky News that he was doing everything to prevent a no-deal Brexit, which he says will be catastrophic. He's confirmed he's been sent documents by Boris Johnson outlining draft ideas for new terms. The pair had face-to-face discussions earlier this week for the first time since the Prime Minister came into office. In London, I'm Sebastian Salek, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Sebastian, thanks. Shares of Royal Bank of Scotland are up 2.5%. The bank promoted Alison Rose to Chief Executive Officer, making her the first woman to run one of Britain's big four lenders.
And oil is rising once again, capping one of the most dramatic weeks ever for crude, where 5% of the world's supplies were cut by attacks on Saudi production facilities. Prices are up about 8% this week. Checking oil now, NYMEX crude oil is up 0.6% or 33 cents at $58.46 a barrel. Brent is up 0.7%. It's at $64.85. And futures are higher as well. S&P futures up 3 points, Dow futures up 33, NASDAQ futures up about 16. And the 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.77%. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. And this is Bloomberg.
Karen, thanks. 5:33 on Wall Street, and Michael Barr is here with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. The latest standoff between Congress and the executive branch has evolved over an alleged phone call in which President Trump made a promise to a foreign leader. According to the Washington Post, the complaint from an intelligence official centers on Ukraine, but it's unclear how. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
The government's intelligence watchdog did testify in closed session of the House Intelligence Committee about a whistleblower's complaint. Committee Chair Adam Schiff says the White House is blocking any effort to investigate.
And if the assertion is accurate that the Department of Justice has made and the DNI has affirmed that this involves a potentially privileged communication, then at one level or another, it likely involves either the president or people around him.
And he says he hopes a whistleblower will be brought in next week. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's president is facing calls from Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani to investigate business ventures in Ukraine involving Joe Biden's son. New documents show the FBI has used secret subpoenas to obtain personal data from companies more than previously revealed. The request reported in the New York Times have raised privacy concerns, including getting information from places such as banks, credit agencies, and cell phone carriers. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg met with President Trump as he tried to sway Congress and policymakers who have been critical of the practices of the social media platform. According to a Facebook spokesman, Zuckerberg had a constructive meeting with the president. However, Zuckerberg's meetings on Capitol Hill grew testy as he clashed with lawmakers over his company's record on privacy and safeguarding user data. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced a move to tackle high drug pricing. Pelosi says the plan would allow Medicare to negotiate prices for seniors and younger people.
We don't want a political issue at the polls. We want a solution in the Congress, and we want it now.
On the Gulf Coast, what's left of Tropical Storm Imelda produced heavy rain for more than 24 hours. It is blamed for at least one death outside of Houston in Harris County. Houston's Mayor Sylvester Turner.
These storms are coming with greater intensity and greater frequency, and we have to find ways to address them and minimize the risk.
Although waters are receding, roads are still impassable. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Thank you, Michael. Coming up to 5:36 on Wall Street, time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, brought to you by Burden Accountants and Advisors. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, in a season where a record 30 players have been on the injured list, the Yankees still achieved something not done since 2012.
And the 1-2 struck him out swinging. Ball game over. American League East over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Heard that from John Sterling, WFAN, 100 times this season. Last night's win, 9-1 over the Angels. 4 home runs were hit, including the 25th of the year from DJ LeMay, who might be the Yankee MVP. 26th from the longest tenured Yank, Brett Gardner. Check a goal off the list, says manager Aaron Boone.
One of the things we talked about in spring training was winning the division, and that's a reality now. And You think of a lot of people that contributed to this. Obviously we have bigger goals, but this is an important step, and I'm just proud of the guys and the so many people, some that aren't even in that room right now, that have contributed to us being here.
Well, one of those big contributors was Domingo Germán, team leading 18 wins, but Germán was not part of the celebration, may not be part of the postseason. MLB investigating a claim of domestic violence against Germán. For now, he's on administrative leave. The remaining games still have meaning. Yanks a half game behind the Astros. That'll determine their first round opponent, either the Twins or whoever emerges out of the wild card. The season ended now. The Cubs would miss the playoffs. They lost in 10 innings to the Cardinals. They fell a half game behind Milwaukee. Mets have faint playoff hopes. They played tonight in Cincinnati. NFL, Jacksonville beat Tennessee 20-7. Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. I'm John Stashow. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. It's 5:37 on Wall Street, and the latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is on newsstands now with a cover on GM's big bet on electric and self-driving cars. David Welch wrote the story for Bloomberg Business Week.
What GM's really doing here, what Mary Barra's strategy really is getting out of low-margin or money-losing businesses. And with the money she saves, she's putting it into electric cars, autonomous vehicles, because she sees that as the real future of the company.
And you can read more about this and other stories in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Know what matters and why? Visit businessweek.com or pick up a copy of the magazine on newsstands now. And listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly, weekdays at 2 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Radio. It's 5:38 on Wall Street. Time for the Tri-State Business Report. Here's Bloomberg's Ed Corey. Good morning, Ed.
Hi, Nathan. Apple has been renovating its store on Fifth Avenue for about 3 years now. It opens to the public today. New features include 20-foot trees and skylights, but the most popular change may be 2 new entrances placed on the north and south side of the store. Connecticut is raising taxes on all digital goods and certain electronically delivered software. Fees for services like Netflix, Hulu, iTunes, and even ebooks have been taxed at a 1% rate, but beginning October 1st, that goes up to 6.35%. Residents of Newark have been complaining about the stench of carcasses emanating from Darling Ingredients rendering plant. Some have reportedly become ill and keep their windows closed, according to a lawsuit now filed by state regulators. It claims the Irving, Texas-based company improperly operated emissions equipment, and that released putrid gas into the air. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey. Nathan?
All right, Ed, thank you. 5:39 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team for some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Gina Cervetti, and for WBBM in Chicago, aspirin by drone moves closer as Google's Alphabet and Walgreens team up with FedEx on a delivery test.
I'm Steve Potisk, and on WJFK Washington and WTIC Hartford, I'm reporting on supermarket operator Ahold Delhaize looking to cut harmful chemicals from packaging.
I'm Caroline Hepker on Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio in London. We're reporting on Royal Bank of Scotland promoting Alison Rose to Chief Executive, an insider and the first woman to run one of Britain's big 4 lenders.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on KFAB in Omaha. Cheese prices are finally seeing a recovery, rebounding from last year's lows.
And those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. Some other stories we're watching. Google spending $3.3 billion over the next 2 years to expand its European server farms. The company will have spent over $16 billion on European data centers since 2007. And JCPenney preparing for talks with creditors to ease its debt burden, giving the struggling retailer's new CEO more breathing room. Bondholders have been pushing the company to consider a swap or extension of some of its $4 billion of debt. This is Bloomberg.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at storiesofinnovation.njit.edu.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and...
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again, and this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA and ATOL protected, subject to availability and conditions.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
To advertise the McCafe range from McDonald's, we could use the silkiest, smoothest, sensualist voice to deliver a silky, sensual voiceover about the smoothness of the Arabica beans in our coffee, drawing comparisons between the voiceover and the smooth, sensual silkiness of said beans. We could do all that.
But we don't. What we do is use freshly ground Arabica beans and organic milk. McCafe. Great tasting coffee. Simple.
News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
President Trump will be briefed by the Pentagon today on options for a possible military response to the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil industry. The Trump administration blames Iran, but the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif tells correspondent Nick Payton-Walsh the U.S. should tread carefully.
What would be the consequence of an American or Saudi military strike on Iran now?
An all-out war.
You make a very serious statement there, sir.
Well, I make a very serious statement about defending our country.
A former American Airlines mechanic is due to enter a plea in court today. He's charged with sabotaging an aircraft in Miami that had 150 people aboard. It came back safely, but prosecutors say the accused may have ties to ISIS. At least 2 people are dead in the floodwaters that submerged parts of the area around Houston yesterday. Officials say the high water is receding, but they are still struggling to clear the freeways of hundreds of cars and trucks that got stranded. I'm Jan Johnson.
If there really were such a thing as business as usual,
we are not seeing acceleration.
You wouldn't need Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
They talk about competition.
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stock index futures have been adding to their gains, with S&P futures now up 5 points, Dow futures up 47, and NASDAQ futures up 19. The DAX in Germany is down about 0.1%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.77%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.74%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.6% or 33 cents at $58.46 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4% or $5.70 at $15.11.90 an ounce. The euro 1.1053 against the dollar. The British pound 1.2542, and the yen is at 107.97. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, President Trump will hear a broad range of military options from the Pentagon today as he considers how to respond to the Iranian attack on Saudi Arabia's oil industry. U.S. officials say the president will be presented with a list of potential airstrike targets inside Iran, and also will be warned that military action could escalate into war. President Trump reportedly spoke with Ukraine's president in a conversation that became the focus of a whistleblower's complaint concerning the contents of the conversation. Democrats are threatening to go to court over allegations the Trump administration refused to alert Congress about the complaint about the president. In baseball, the Yankees are the AL East champs following a 9-1 pounding of the Angels. Red Sox beat the Giants. Orioles lost. Jaguars winners Thursday night in NFL. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Michael, thank you. We're coming up to 5:49 on Wall Street. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg Daybreak, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. It has been a relatively quiet week for U.S. equities, with the S&P 500 virtually unchanged, despite a decision from the Federal Reserve, increased tensions in the Middle East, wild swings in oil prices, and stress in U.S. funding markets. So what do we make of all this going forward? Let's get some answers now from Jonathan Golub, Chief Equity Strategist at Credit Suisse. Good morning, Jonathan. Is this a time to take on risk with all these headwinds, do you think?
You know, we've been saying for the last couple of months that it's probably not. The U.S. economy is slowing down a bit, and what you've had in the last couple of weeks, really in the whole month of September, is some optimism, and I'd say optimism as opposed to better actual data, but some optimism that the Fed would be more aggressive, that we'd see central banks around the world and governments around the world provide stimulus. But at the end of the day, the real story here is not those news headlines. It's really the fact that the economic data continues to come in weaker.
So does that call then for more accommodation from the Federal Reserve?
Well, it clearly does. And right now, the market is expecting that the Fed is going to move 3 more times. And in fact, it's probably not that the Fed needs to bail the economy out, because the economy is okay, but the yield curve is inverted at the short end, which means it costs more to borrow for one day than it would be to borrow for, let's say, 2 or 3 years. And that's a very unusual situation that's not really healthy for the economy. And the market is expecting the Fed to fix that and uninvert the short end of the curve.
So then do you see the market pushing the Fed toward that accommodation, or is it, as it says, going to be dependent on the data?
No, I mean, if you're looking just at the data, the Fed is supposed to care about 2 things: inflation and growth. And the economy, while it's decelerating, is growing close to 2%. Not brilliant, but okay. And inflation is about 2%. It's kind of in the sweet spot. So the data is saying the Fed doesn't need to take action. What the market is saying is that an inverted yield curve has the potential to push us into recession because it constricts borrowing. It's a signal signal in the past that a recession may be around the corner, and the market is basically, yes, bullying the Fed or pushing the Fed to do more, which is why the market expects three more easings between now and the end of 2020. But I don't think we're going to end up in a recession, but I do think we're going to end up in a period of more sluggish growth, which will be a little bit more difficult for equities. So we're not calling for a big correction. We're not telling people to bail in the market, but for those that are thinking that there's big upside in the next, let's say between now and the end of the year, they might be disappointed.
Do you see anything breaking the economy out of this slowing growth pattern, given the trade tensions with China and given now increased geopolitical tensions in the Middle East?
Well, I think that it's very easy for us to look at the news headlines and assume that any weakness at all. And again, the economy is sluggish, but not horrible. But it's easy for us to assume that this is just about trade tensions and things that the administration might be doing. But that's really not the case. We put in, or the U.S. government put in, tax cuts and other stimulus a couple of years ago, and over time those roll off, or their benefits wear off. And when that happens, you lose the benefits of that stimulus, and that's basically what's happening. This is exactly what economists predicted. What's happening is that the economy would naturally slow down a year or two after the stimulus. It's exactly what is happening, so it's not a reason for people to get really concerned, but it does mean that interest rates have a downward bias, likely to have to push, kind of stay where they are or go lower, and for stocks to remain sluggish until we work through this period. So I think that things will probably be better in 2020 as this deceleration kind of finishes itself and kind of works through the system. But in the near term, it's probably a little bit more challenging.
Jonathan Golub, thank you for joining us. Jonathan Golub is Chief Equity Strategist at Credit Suisse. Karen.
Nathan, thank you. It is 5:53 on Wall Street, and it is time for the Bloomberg Law Report. It's brought to you by American Arbitration Association. International trade or business dispute resolved faster with the International Center for Dispute Resolution, the leader in alternative dispute resolution around the world, ICDR.org. Now let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning with Steve Potisk in the Bloomberg 99.1 Washington newsroom.
State legislators in Massachusetts have approved a measure that allows public sector unions to charge non-members for grievance services. The new law pushes against a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision. The White House has issued an executive order for the Departments of Defense and Health and Human Services to create a task force to develop better flu vaccines. And a bill to push back, once again, the expiration date of the National Flood Insurance Program has passed the House and looks likely to pass the Senate as well.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need on one legal research platform. Guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now another legal development we're watching. Senators slamming U.S. antitrust chiefs for doing too little, too late to rein in giant technology companies and for running overlapping investigations that could hobble enforcement. For more on this story, June Grasso speaks to Bloomberg Intelligence senior antitrust litigation analyst Jennifer Rhee.
Jen, it seemed as if the senators thought there was nothing that the Justice Department and the FTC were doing right in the antitrust arena. Did they have one overriding concern?
The overriding concern was really that it does seem like resources are being vastly wasted by these what look like duplicative investigations of maybe not just Facebook, but possibly, all the big tech companies, because we do understand the Department of Justice has sort of a general review of, online platforms and their market power ongoing. And it takes a lot of resources, and really you have two agencies with concurrent enforcement enforcing the same laws, doing the same investigation. It just doesn't make sense.
Senator Mike Lee, who heads the Senate subcommittee, said that he's been against this for a long time. He's been critical of the fact that we have two federal agencies responsible for civil antitrust enforcement. I have to say, your two agencies have done a remarkable job in recent months of making my points. That's because they did admit that there was a sort of turf war going on over Facebook.
Right, and it's clear that there is, because, we understood a while back that there was clearance, and that's the process they go through. This is the process that has worked for many, many years, mostly worked. When there's a company that needs investigation and the FTC and DOJ get together to decide who's going to do it. It's called a clearance process. So the investigation is cleared to one side or the other. They do it also, by the way, with mergers that are filed. This process seems like it hasn't worked because we heard, or it was reported, that there was clearance for Facebook and Amazon to be investigated by the FTC and Google and Apple to be investigated by the Department of Justice. But now it seems like you have the Department of Justice doing an investigation, a wide-ranging investigation of all of them, and it also looks like they may also be reviewing or scrutinizing Facebook. And what the two heads of the antitrust divisions at these agencies say is that, well, we may not be examining the same conduct. But it's still, June, that doesn't really make sense because a monopolization investigation is all-encompassing.
And that's a Bloomberg Intelligence senior antitrust litigation analyst Jennifer Rees speaking with June Grosso. You can listen to more legal analysis like this on Bloomberg Politics, Policy, Power, and Law, weekdays at 12 p.m. Wall Street time here on Bloomberg Radio. And find more legal news at BloombergLaw.com. Attorneys will find exceptional legal research and business development tools there as well. Visit BloombergLaw.com for more information. And futures this morning extending their gains. S&P futures now up 6.5 points. Dow futures up 56 and NASDAQ futures up 22. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.77%. Yield on the 2-year 1.74%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.6% or 33 cents at $58.46 a barrel. And COMEX gold is up 0.33%, up $5 to $15.11.20 an ounce. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
Influence.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there.